Hello, hello. I see people are coming. Hello, everyone. Let's wait for a couple of minutes. I see people are still joining. Hello, everyone. One more time. We're still waiting other people to join. Let's wait a couple of minutes. Okay, so I think one more minute and we are starting. Okay, I guess we can start. So one more time, hello, nice to be here. It's good that you joined. I'm happy to talk about very interesting topic today. Our topic is DevOps and Cloud Services, crucial importance for startups. Basically, we'll be talking about why do we need clouds, especially for startups, and why do we need DevOps engineers or just a DevOps culture for startups, why it's important. My name is Anton. I'm Chief Architect at prophecylabs.com. Previously, I was DevOps Cloud Architect, DevOps Cloud Engineer, was doing a lot of migration projects between different clouds, was consulting startups, doing optimization projects. So I'm DevOps, and I will be able to answer all your questions related to DevOps topic as well. Let's start it. So the first of all, who we are Prophecy. Prophecy is the service company. We are founded in 2015. It's an Israeli company. We have a lot of engineers with a ton of certifications in GCP and AWS and cloud native foundation. So a lot of experts working with Prophecy, and our main service that we're providing is basically DevOps and cloud services. We're doing migration, project optimization, and so on. A lot of DevOps work. As I mentioned, our expertise is basically cloud, DevOps, DevSecOps, and FinOps. This is what we're doing. Now about the topic. As I mentioned to you, the topic is about DevOps and cloud, why it's important for startups. And the first that we need to talk about is basically why clouds are important for startups. And there is a really great article on Forbes.com about how startups can grow faster using the cloud. And it has a really great explanation why you actually need to use the cloud. But I will tell you just a little story. Let's imagine that we want to create a startup. Or for example, I have an idea and I want to create a startup. And for example, my startup, I don't know, it's very simple. I can create like mobile application, or I can create a website, like something simple, something like a website and just to sell t-shirts. And well, I need to do that. I need to know how to code, like at least a basic one. And for example, I know, and I started and created my website. So now I have a website and I'm ready to kick it off and start selling the t-shirts. But I need to host this website somewhere. So I need to find a hosting solution or cloud. I need to read about that. There's like learning curve. I need to learn about that. Then, for example, I deploy it. Then I need some database to keep my customers, which will be registering within my website. Again, I need to figure out what kind of database, where to host it, and so on, so on. There are a lot of questions about that. And you already understand what I'm talking about. So basically, it's not enough just to write the code. You need to know where to execute the code, how it will be executed, who will be taking care of interruption of that execution, and so on. And here's where the clouds are coming in. So clouds are coming in and saying, you know what? You don't need to know a lot about infrastructure. We already take care about everything. We took the actual hardware and we created a layer of software on the top of that hardware. And you basically can interact with the hardware through our software. And that interaction is really simple. Basically, you don't need to know the hardware. You need to know the hosting solutions. You can just reuse what they are providing to you. They're already providing you building blocks of infrastructure. They can provide you with database. They can provide you with compute, with CPU memory, and so on. Like a lot of different things they can provide you. And I will give an example. For example, I want to create a startup which will be replicating what the Google Translate is doing. So you know that inside the Google Translate on your mobile phone, you have a mobile application, Google Translate. And inside that application, you can actually scan through your video, through the web camera, through the camera on the iPhone or Android, you can actually scan the text, and it can convert the text to another language, for example, non-English to English language. And you basically can replicate that very easily. You don't need a lot of developers to do that. You can do it on your own. You just need to know the programming language like on a basic level, and you can replicate that. Why? Because there is, for example, a service from the Google Cloud, which is called the GCP Vision API. And there is another service which is called the Translate API. So basically, they provide that software which does the translation and does the image recognition. They provide it to you, and you can just use it. You don't need to build it from scratch. That's the power of the cloud. The power of the cloud, that it gives you fully like tested, ready for production layer of infrastructure. You have idea, and you can easily spin up that idea on a cloud. You can take a look if that idea is really good, is that end users actually using it, this is working great, and then you can start expanding it. So basically, as AWS says, build right and build fast. So this is their slogan. They're saying that on AWS you can build fast and build right. What they mean, build right. Clouds exist for already like 12, 14 years. So it's like it's quite a long journey already for clouds. And because clouds exist for already like a decade, there are a lot of different architectures which clouds already provide to us. So basically, clouds already learned through their customers what kind of infrastructure is working, what kind of infrastructure is not working, and then can provide you the templates. Basically, you don't need to find out what's the best like database architecture, what's the best mobile application architecture. They will provide it to you. They will even generate it to you, because they will provide you the actual code that can generate that infrastructure. That's another power of clouds, is that you can repeat something, you can reuse someone else's work, and you can there is no need to invent the wheel again. You can basically reuse something that was done previously. That's another power of the cloud. And there is a really good correlation between the startups and when the clouds kicked off, because clouds simplifying the infrastructure layer means that you can create your own startup by your own, or you can just grab your friend, and together you can verify some idea on a cloud. There is a way on the cloud even to execute a piece of the code. Like you can just create a code. It could be a Python code, Java code, and you can go to cloud and just execute that code. There is no need to compile it. Like you can execute it on a live, which is great. It's very easy to start and check. That's about the clouds. And I started to talk about the growth of the startups and the clouds. When the clouds were kicked off and become popular, startups find out that it's very easy to check their ideas on the cloud. Because again, you can start with a very small team of 2-3 engineers or even 1 engineer, and you can build a really, really good application because everything already provided to you. You're just reusing that. Of course, when the company is starting to grow, you need a larger infrastructure. I will talk about that. So clouds saw that startups actually like them. Startups actually using clouds a lot. And clouds started to provide the credits. The credit system on the clouds was actually invented because of the startups. Because if you're a new startup, you will just register within the Google Cloud, Azure, or AWS. They will give you some credits and you can live using those credits. And of course, you can play with your startup. You can play with different ideas. As you see on this slide, the public cloud spending is growing significantly. Total market capitalization is going to be almost $600 billion in 2023, the next year. Revenue is huge, and basically more and more companies are migrating to the clouds, and even the enterprise companies. Currently, there is a very big shift from on-premise infrastructure for enterprise companies to clouds. Of course, it doesn't mean that they will fully use the cloud. There's going to be some mix of the hardware and the cloud environments. But enterprise companies started to use the clouds as well, and they're using them heavily. That's what numbers says. Okay, moving next. So now we talk about the clouds. Now you know that like you have a cloud, and cloud actually take care about the infrastructure. They created a layer of software so you can control that hardware, and they are providing you with the templates and the best practices and so on and so on. So it's very easy to start dealing with the infrastructure if you're using the clouds. So what the DevOps and why we need DevOps in that case? So I told you a story about like a small startup, 2-person created some idea, executed on the cloud. Let's imagine that everything is going fine. They have a good traction of the users, and they decided, okay, guys, we need to expand the team. So they expanded the team. Now they have 5, maybe 10 developers. And now it becomes harder and harder to basically keep your eye on the infrastructure, on your cloud infrastructure. I mentioned to you that there is a software layer which makes cloud. There is a software layer on top of the hardware, and basically you're controlling hardware, communicating with that software layer. And why you need DevOps? Because you basically can configure everything, but it's taking a lot of time, especially when company is growing, and you need to bring the automation. And this is where the DevOps is coming in. DevOps was invented or created just because clouds become popular. So DevOps basically is working on automating the infrastructure layer on the clouds. Why? Because clouds provide that software layer, and they provide the capability to script, automate everything. Like you can script the whole your infrastructure, no matter how complex that infrastructure. It could be one small service, or it could be like for a large enterprise company. So you are hiring those DevOps engineers, and they're starting to implement the automation of your infrastructure, automation of your cloud, which is super great. Why it's great? Because first of all, now you have a repeated infrastructure. Now you can do the testing faster. Now you can minimize your costs. Why you can minimize the cost? Because you need to keep your infrastructure up and running only during the working hours when your developers are working. Of course, for production, you need to keep it 24/7. But other times you can shut it down, or even can remove and then spin up a new one on another day. So DevOps basically brings the automation for the cloud part, and also for the configuration part on the cloud, and also on the way how developers are working. So when developer is writing the code, DevOps is the engineer who basically will automate the compilation of that code, the testing of the code, and then the deployment and execution of the code on a cloud. And DevOps will take care about the underlying infrastructure layer for this application. So basically, that kind of automation will help your developers and will help your infrastructure. And the benefits are clear, like it's a fast solution. Once you have everything scripted and automated, you can always reuse it, you can improve it, you can test it, which is more important. You can all constantly test it, like over the loop. So improved performance, increased efficiency, that's like clear. You can start collecting metrics or data on how much you actually paying per one customer, because on a cloud and taking control over everything that you have as a code, as a script, whatever you call it, you can basically figure out how much you're paying for one customer, because you can take a look on how much you're paying for internet, how much you're paying for your CPU, for your memory, for a disk, and so on, so on, so on. So you can even calculate that, which is really hard to do on actual hardware. As I mentioned, and one of the benefits is basically reduce failures and rollbacks, because again, you're not starting from scratch. You have already like a layer of foundation of best practices, and you're starting on top of them. And those best practices already include a lot of previous mistakes which other companies and people did. And you're already like starting with some good baseline. This is for clouds, and not only for clouds. I'm talking more about the templates that clouds provide to you, which you can reuse. Now, let's talk about the DevOps market forecast. Forecast is really simple. Why it's simple? I mean, it's very logical to understand that DevOps is going to grow. Why? Because clouds are growing. More and more companies are going to clouds, means that more and more DevOps engineers you will need to have. Of course, your developers can automate that. But usually companies are like starting from 10 engineers within the company. Companies are hiring the additional DevOps engineers, like a dedicated. Why? Because you need someone or a team or process which will take care about the infrastructure. Infrastructure is really important. And if you will not be looking for your infrastructure, you will end up spending a lot of money. I saw like a lot of mistakes made on the cloud when people were spending, I don't know, a huge amount of money on the cloud infrastructure, while you can decrease it. So the forecast, it's clear that it's growing. How much it's going to grow? 20% per year, based on this forecast. In 2021, it was 7 billion market, and in 2030, it's going to be 37 billion market. So you see, it's growing. Means that we will have more DevOps work, we'll have more DevOps projects, we will have more DevOps startups coming to next 5-10 years. Definitely. That's about the DevOps market. Now, DevOps evolution. When the clouds were introduced, DevOps started from scratch. They were doing the infrastructure manually on the clouds. It means that you have a cloud has the interface, the web interface, you're connecting there, and then you're creating everything manually and configuring it manually and taking care about the configuration manually. Then DevOps started to bring in scripting. Why you need to do something manually if you can script it? So you script it, okay, beautiful, but now you have a bunch of different scripts which are not usually connected between each other, and it's another hell. Then your DevOps bring in the orchestration when you already have a tool which basically can orchestrate the whole cloud, and now you can create some complex scripting, complex infrastructures. Now it's like programming, but you're programming the infrastructure, which is super. Next state is called autonomous or atomics. What it means? It means that you partially have the machine learning, or machine observation. Let's call it machine observation. you're already creating metrics out of your infrastructure. You are relying on those metrics. So for example, you are scaling up your infrastructure based on your current user usage. So I will give you an example. It could be like e-commerce website, and when no users on your website, you just need maybe 2 servers in order to run your e-commerce website. When you have 1,000 users, 2 servers not enough, you need maybe 5 servers. But you don't want to keep 5 servers up and running. You want that to be elastic. So no users, no servers. You have users, you have the amount of servers, only the one that you need in order to cover that kind of load. And that's the state I am talking about. The state of automation, when you automated everything on a level that basically it's elastically expanded, downscaled, it changing the sizes. So it's evolving based on your usage and based on your application, let's say like that. And by the way, that stage is where the market is currently. Market is looking for different ways how to basically do this stage. So we're currently in this stage of when companies already providing you the automation on top of infrastructure and on top of development process. So now you can control how much you're spending, and you won't be spending more than you should. And the process for developers working with the infrastructure is very straightforward, and developers getting the feedback from the infrastructure that everything is working, everything is tested, and so on, so on. So this is the current state. This is the current state where we are. And we are moving to the fully machine learning automation, when you're collecting those kind of metrics about your infrastructure, about your application, about the usage of your application and infrastructure, and then you're giving it to machine learning, and machine learning can reconfigure or change your infrastructure in more efficient way. So this is something where we are moving to. There are some like projects and tools which are already available about that, but again, it's too early to say that we already achieve it. It will take some time once we will see really mature machine learning projects in this area. But this is where the whole market is moving. The whole market is moving to what's called NoOps. NoOps means that you can have a co-pilot, you can have like a machine learning, or let's call it ML ops, or machine learning ops, which can take care of like a basic DevOps things, but you still need a human or person, human engineer who will be observing it, changing it, and maybe controlling the actual execution, and maybe doing some more complex stuff. This is where we are at the moment. Yeah, that's about DevOps. That's about DevOps. Yeah. Now, before we will wrap up the actual presentation, I want to talk more about the business needs. Why business actually again needs to have a DevOps and needs to have the clouds. So as I mentioned to you, the clouds are helping by providing you with building blocks for infrastructure and providing this software layer which gives you a capability to automate the whole infrastructure, which is great, very easy to use, and you can use the best services from a different clouds, different providers. All that automation gives you a quicker way to test your different ideas, to quicker develop this your startup, to quicker find the market fit, and then to change. Over time, you can evolve. You can use one cloud. You can use multiple clouds. Again, in a nutshell, it's just a piece of software. It's an API to which you are connecting, and you're configuring or creating the resources, communicating with the cloud through the API, through that software piece of the code. That's about the clouds. Then once the company is evolving, as I mentioned to you, this is where you need a person or a process within the company. It could be like 10 developers who just decided between each other that they will be automating the cloud. But if you have a larger team, you definitely need a dedicated engineer or dedicated team who will be looking for your infrastructure. This is where DevOps come in. This is where the automation of your infrastructure come in, and this is where your developers is getting quicker build time. They're getting the good testing. They're getting the feedback about the testing about infrastructure, which means that your quality is growing. And of course, the blueprint of your application is getting smaller. You're like spending less money in order to execute your application, which means again you potentially could earn more money and your startup could evolve much larger. Like saying quickly why we need clouds and DevOps, like in a nutshell. Now, actually, I want to give you just an example. I believe on this slide about our expertise. I just want to give you an example about how startups are actually doing the cloud and DevOps together. I will just tell you one story, and after that, I'm ready to answer any questions. And I hope we'll have a lot of questions. About the questions, you can ask the questions related to the clouds. You can ask the questions related to DevOps. I'm happy to answer them. So the story. The story is really simple. A story about the startup, which started with the two engineers. They decided first of all to develop the simple mobile application, and they were looking how to do that. So they develop it locally. Locally is working. Everything is fine. Now they need, or they want to basically publish it somewhere. So they choose the cloud, they publish it in the cloud, and everything went good, and they received the investment. And once they received the investment for their startup, they decided to grow the application and basically hire more people. And this is where they started to build their DevOps practices. And what DevOps brings to the company, those DevOps engineers who come to the company, they actually automated the whole infrastructure. They secured everything. They secured data, and they provided the clear reporting to the higher management at the end of the month, like automation of the reporting. That means that at the end of the month, you're getting like how much of the builds happened for the last month. So you're getting the KPI basically, and they started to track those KPIs. They started to grow with those KPIs. Applications started to grow. At some point of time, they added machine learning to their capabilities, because they started to add additional metrics to the application. They started to calculate how much they spending money per each user, and then trying to squeeze that money. All of those things, they're possible only when you can automate everything. And clouds giving you that possibility. Clouds giving you possibility to basically automate the whole life cycle of your application, starting from zero to the actual production execution. And DevOps are basically giving you possibility to execute that automation. So that's it. Any questions, comments? No questions? Everything is clear? Should be some questions. Can you actually hear me? Yeah, we have a question. We have a question. When is the best time to hire DevOps for startup? Good question. Thank you. It depends on the startup. I will give you an example. So again, you have a small idea. It could be just a website, and you know that you don't need a DevOps because you don't have a lot of infrastructure. So you can handle it by yourself. You can just execute it by yourself. You need a DevOps engineer when your application infrastructure is complex enough that it's taking more than 2 hours of your time per day. If you're spending like 2 or 3 hours managing your infrastructure, or like your developers are spending maybe 20% of their daily time to manage the infrastructure, then you definitely need a DevOps engineer. The idea of DevOps engineer is that DevOps is taking that load from the developers. So developers can concentrate only on building your application and building your ideas, while DevOps will take care about the infrastructure. So sometimes it's like maybe 3 engineers within the team, and then you need to hire DevOps. Sometimes it could be like a team of 5 engineers, and then you need to have a DevOps. It depends on the team. I also saw companies and teams who said that, you know what, we don't need DevOps as an engineer. We will build the process in a company, which means that each and every developer need to create the infrastructure for his piece of the code. So each and every developer needs to know the cloud. Each and every developer need to take care about his infrastructure by him own. I saw such companies as well, but usually it's a dedicated engineer. Thank you for question. Question number 2. What are the hard skills for DevOps? Thank you so much. Interesting question. The hard skills, again, I will tell you the hard skills which are required right now, based on what's required on the market right now. But it doesn't mean that it will stay like that. Everything is changing, and the hard skills required different right now. Like 3-5 years ago, DevOps engineers were still dealing with the hardware. And when you're dealing with the hardware, you're dealing with the operation systems, and you need something to basically configure the operation systems and control operation systems, which usually was used like Ansible. Ansible was usually used for that, and Chef or SaltStack was using for that, like configuration management tools. Right now, nowadays, mostly all the startups, not all, but most of them are actually using the clouds, and enterprise companies are also moving to the cloud. So we have more and more clouds, more and more companies using the Kubernetes. And again, Kubernetes gives you a very great way to integrate with it. Means that you can automate everything that you want. You can automate the whole your application deployment process, which is great. That's why the current hard skills are: you need to know the cloud. Basically, you need to get the certification about the cloud as a proof that you know the cloud, or a solid experience. Second, you need to learn the Docker. You need to learn the Kubernetes. You need to learn the Helm. Helm is basically the templating for Kubernetes. Let's call it like a template of the configuration files for Kubernetes. After the Helm, you need to learn the Terraform. Terraform is basically the tool that gives you possibility to automate the infrastructure on the cloud. It's multi-cloud tool. You can automate or create a code for any cloud using the Terraform. Then you need to learn Git, because each and every DevOps engineer need to work as a developer, not as system administrator. Means that you need to keep your code, your configs on a Git, and you need to be familiar with what's the branching strategies exist there, what kind of branching strategy you should use, and you need to like be familiar with the Git. You need to work with the Git, like do the pushes, merges, and so on. And after the Git, probably that's it. Linux, of course, Linux, but not on a like very high level. You can learn just like a solid, like maybe basic plus or maybe medium minus level, and that will be enough. That will cover everything. So just more concentrate on the cloud, Terraform, and so on. Yeah. So, but this is the hard skills right now. I didn't talk about the soft skills. DevOps engineer is the one who, between developers, between security, between managers, you're like in the middle. So you need to communicate. Your soft skills need to be good, because you need to go to one developer, you need to ask the question, then another developer, then create a ticket. So you need to be okay with communicating with people. That's what DevOps do. Like DevOps, means developer operations. So basically like a mix of two. Okay, another question. What cloud is the best for a startup? Good question. It depends. Like in this article, Forbes.com article about grow fast with the cloud for startups, they're saying that your cloud choice should depend on how much credits you will get from the cloud, not about how good is the cloud, because each and every cloud, they have cons and pros. It depends on what kind of services you're using, but like on a general level, it doesn't actually that big difference. You can choose any cloud you want. Just take a look if the pricing is okay for you and try to negotiate a good deal. So that probably is the best advice for startups. I saw cases when the venture capital was simply saying to the startup that, you know what, like we invested in you, and we have a good like partnership with cloud, with some cloud, and we giving you like that amount of credits just for free. So please go and use this cloud. And startup is going in and using this cloud, not because he made a choice, but because it was a free of charge. That's the story. Other question. While choosing the cloud, could Prophecy help if we decided to migrate? Yeah, I mentioned that we're doing the services, all kind of services like migrations. We're partners with the cloud providers, with AWS, with GCP. We have a lot of certified engineers. So any kind of that work we can help with. We can automate. We can consult. We can migrate you, yeah, easily. Yeah, and we are really good with Kubernetes. If you have like any Kubernetes is your questions, please come. This is something that the whole company loves to do. The project's on Kubernetes. Another question, could you elaborate on how cloud spending metrics are calculated by user and what is the best way to do that? Well, this is the very complex question, but thank you for asking it. Again, the cloud spending metrics depends on the application. I will give you and depends on your pricing model. I will give you an example. So I have the e-commerce website. On an e-commerce website, it's clear that I want to calculate how many users actually opening my website, going to my website, how many users logging in on my website, then how many users looking, going to cart, like you made an order, how many users made the order, yeah, and how many users finished the order. So how many users finished the order? So this is what I need to collect. I need to calculate, and then the question that I will ask you: what kind of per what user you want to calculate the cost? Per user who actually purchased the item, or per user who just visited your website? What you want to calculate? And for example, you said that, okay, you know what? I want to find out how much I'm spending for infrastructure for the user who actually did the purchase, who actually did the order and then finished the order. So, and I would say to you that, okay, then let's find out how many of those users we have. Then let's divide the whole cost that we have, for example, for per number of those users, and that's going to be our number. But this is like I just invented this use case in my mind. Usually people calculating the pricing based on the traffic, like they're charging their customers based on the traffic or based on API requests, and you like calculating API requests, calculating traffic. Some are adding metric like how much CPU, memory, I/O, traffic I spend per one request, or I spend per one user. And for example, when you know that how much of the CPU, memory, I/O, and requests and internet you're spending per one user, then you can calculate how much you actually spend on your infrastructure, because you know the pricing of your infrastructure. So this is another way. So basically, it depends on application. Like on the mobile application, you probably will be calculating the API requests. probably based on API requests, and then based on CPU that you spend for your backend, for example. Yeah, okay. Thank you for question. Next one, implementing this DevOps from scratch. What should we do first? Good. Implementing DevOps from scratch. There are two parts of that. The real life story. I was a part of a startup which was starting from zero, from nothing, and we decided that we will do like the best DevOps ever. Like we will do the most fancy, most advanced, everything, like the great one from the day one, from the beginning. And we started to do that, and we were doing it for 1 year, and startup didn't make it. Startup just failed, which means that starting at the beginning, doing everything as per book probably is not a good idea. You need to evolve your processes, your development processes, DevOps processes, together with the evolution of your application. So if you have one developer, probably you don't need to have a DevOps. You have a bunch of developers, and now you have a complex infrastructure. You need to bring a DevOps. You need to bring the processes. Now you're enterprise company. Now you need to have a DevOps organization. You need to have a knowledge base, and you need to have a ton of different things. So I would say starting from SMB, small medium business, this is where you should start building your DevOps processes. So once you become from a very, very small startup and you like raised maybe seed round or pre-seed round, or if you see that your application is already like maybe 3 servers, 5 servers, this is the time when you should start considering DevOps. Yeah. Thank you. No more questions, as I see, right? I answered on all of them. Again, if you have any questions, please go on. If not, let's we have a question. Okay. Yeah, just thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Questions, don't be shy. Questions, DevOps clouds, anything you are wondering and looking for about that topic. You cannot even imagine what people are doing right now. Example, what you can achieve with DevOps engineers and clouds. Your application can be choosing what cloud is currently more cost efficient for you, specifically for you, and it can be automatically moving between the clouds. So you can create the infrastructure the way your application, first of all, is communicating with all clouds together. It could be multiple of them. And second, your application can move itself from one cloud to another cloud in a life, like in real life, and your users even will not notice about that movement. And also, people like expanding their application on the clouds very quickly, like. You like send a marketing campaign, and now you're getting a lot of traffic, and then your cloud just expanded automatically. Everything become bigger, larger, and capable to handle that kind of load. This is what people doing on the clouds. The question: what's the future problems of DevOps and clouds? What I see right now, people are trying to for DevOps in the DevOps area. Companies and people are trying to build language, like a programming language or configuration language, or a set of tools where you can create and manage your infrastructure in like as simplest as possible way. This is where the market is moving, DevOps market. Like people are trying to automate everything. They're trying to involve machine learning. They're trying to hand over some of their tasks to machine learning, to automation, and then to leave the person just like operator. You like operating this automation, this machine learning. And we see more and more projects coming in with some kind of automation and then you can integrate with that automation, you can reuse that, and so on. This is what companies are doing. And the problem for DevOps is that the level of knowledge of DevOps engineer, as I see, is not growing, it's going down, because everything is becoming simpler. Like you can use this machine learning tools, you can use already prepared templates for you. So your learning curve is becoming smaller and smaller, which is great, which means that more people can build on the cloud, which is great. I see that maybe in 20 years from now, we will be no ops. No ops means that a business can handle everything without the ops engineers on the clouds. I see that the clouds or the tools will be that automated that there will be no need to have a DevOps, but I'm not sure. I believe that some of the companies will still be like old-fashioned, using the hardware even, and still looking for like automation and DevOps engineers. I'm not sure, it could be. Another question, do you think that developers can do DevOps tasks as a part of their job? Is it possible to grow from developer to DevOps and vice versa? Thank you, good question. Yes, developers can do the DevOps job by themselves. I saw the teams, I saw the companies where DevOps process was handled by developers, where developers were creating or managing the infrastructure which is related to the application. So I will give you an example. You're creating a microservice, you're creating an application, and that application depends on a database, and you just handling the creation of the database from your application. So when your application is starting up, it's basically checking if the database exists. If not, it goes to the cloud, creates it, and then connects to it, and then creates the schema, for example. Now, another part of the question, is it possible to grow from developer to DevOps and vice versa? Yes, I saw a statistic that around 23% of DevOps engineers, they switch from developer position to a DevOps position. A majority, 70% of DevOps engineers, this is all ex-system administrators who are doing the automation and learning the programming languages, or it's like a freshly studied DevOps engineers, like just like a student who just decided to be a DevOps cloud engineer and he started from scratch. But yes, so it's working vice versa. And by the way, very interesting, DevOps engineers who transformed from developers, they tend to do as much, like they tend to split the infrastructure more in like object-oriented way, when you have a classes, providers, and objects, and like you're splitting your infrastructure on the same way of thinking, while DevOps engineers who come from like old-fashioned system administrators, they tend to do config files, like more YAML files, more JSON files, and then like specify everything within those like files. So again, it's very interesting how the DevOps is evolving, because there is a part of developers, part of ex-administrators. Another question, what do DevOps and FinOps industry participants don't talk about how cloud and cost optimization contribute sustainability? Why do DevOps and FinOps industry talk about how cloud and cost optimization contribute to stability? Thank you for a question. Why? Interesting. Yeah, I know why. Because again, people are usually talking about mostly cutting the cost on the cloud, and not why it's important to cut the cost, except like spending less money. That's why people are not talking about the sustainability. But like we're currently living in an age when minimizing your cost or cost print, let's call it like that, minimizing your cost print is actually really good. We have a lot of movements in a real life. Like there are a lot of young people who are doing the FIRE movement, like retire early, like financial independence, retire early. A lot of people doing that, and they're minimizing their costs. And this is the same philosophy. This is the same idea for the clouds. Like we call it FinOps. It's financial operations. The idea is that you again minimizing or squeezing the cost on the cloud as much as possible. You just live in as little as your application requires in order to live, work, and you're trying to minimize it. But of course, there is another way of thinking about that, thinking that, you know what, spending less electricity means that like spending less servers, less databases, making your application more efficient. Of course, you will spend less electricity, which will be good for nature, good for everything. So that's also a good part about that. By the way, you saw that the clouds, they're trying to build their data centers in eco-friendly way, means that those data centers are like zero waste, zero emission, usually. Okay, no more questions. If no more questions, we can wrap up. I hope I was able to answer all your questions, and we had a good talk about the cloud and DevOps, and how DevOps fit within the modern age and within the startups. Now, I hope that now you understand that better. If you will have any questions, don't hesitate to send it to me. You can send it to me over the email. You can contact our company. If you need any help related to DevOps, also just come in. We'll be happy to help you. Yeah, and on that, thank you so much to have you here, and hope you will have a great evening or great day, depending where you're located.